Alrighty, welcome back to part 2 of my Willow Creek sub in-scale layout ballasting video. It's actually been a couple of days since I put this ballast on and glued it down. In the meantime, I have put the skeleton sort of framework up for an overpass. It's going to go over the back there. I'm still humming and hawing about that. Sort of just nothing's glued in at the moment. It's sort of just sitting there at the moment, but yeah, the ballasting. So this ballast has come up dry now. It's excuse the pun, rock hard. Excuse my fingers because I have been painting as well, so don't get alarmed with that. But yeah, this has turned out really rock hard. Turned out really well. So what I did in these last couple of days, after I've done that, I have come through and I've continued on with the rest of the yard up to the steel mill. So if I sort of pan around, past the rotary dumper, and I continued on the steel mill yard here, and all I did was I just used the same techniques I showed you in the first video. Put the ballast down, smoothed it out with a brush, and the only thing I've done different is you probably see there's little bits of foam grass in between the tracks there. That's I put that in when the glue is wet. So that sort of the foam sort of absorbs up the glue and it stays there, and that sort of puts a base down for my static grass that's going to go in later. This yard's going to be dotted with little bits of static grass, as most yards aren't perfectly manicured. So that's basically what I've been busy doing. Also with the ballasting of the track, I've gotten it sort of ready to ballast around the rotary dumper there, the rotary dumper building, which is actually a Walther's L's Victory service station. And yeah, this is all. This was ballasted probably about an hour ago, so I've still got to let that dry. Once that's dry, I'll pick off any loose ballast around the rails. As I said before, there's nothing different from the application from when the first video went in, and yeah, I'll show you why I use isopropyl alcohol. Alright, here's a little experiment I sort of set up, and I'll show you why I use isopropyl alcohol. I'm not recreating the wheel or anything like that. Just if anyone's interested, why you use it and why you don't use it, I'm about to show you now. Okay, this pile here, I'm going to glue this with no ice, no alcohol. This pile here, I'm going to spray with isopropyl alcohol, and I'll show you the difference. Okay, so we get our pipette, and with no alcohol, try getting in frame, doing this with one hand. No alcohol, see the glue just beads. It's because the glue, mixture 50 white glue and water, actually has got surface tension. And when it hits the dry ballast there, the surface tension doesn't break, and it sort of does what you saw there. It beads and it bubbles, and it doesn't really soak into the ballast. Eventually it does, as you can see there, but what you do is you move your ballast around and it creates little craters in your ballast work. And I'll show you my isopropyl alcohol, give it a bit of a spray up, bit of a soak, and just watch the difference here. So I'll get my pipette, bit of glue. See, there's no surface tension, there's no bubbling. As soon as that glue hits the ballast, it sinks straight in. So that is why I use the alcohol. This is a bit of a you'll be struggling. You'll be struggling, and your ballast will turn out absolutely horrible. This here, you got a milky white texture on it. Once this dries, it dries matte. It doesn't dry glossy. If you're using Mod Podge, make sure you get Mod Podge matte. The other Mod Podge, when it dries glossy. This PVA 50/50 wood glue that I use, it dries and it's not glossy. It dries matte as well. So that's why I use alcohol on my ballast. So once the glue is dried, had a decent chance to dry, you just want to make sure that your turnout still switch You want to make sure that there's no sort of ballast in between your switch blades there. Also your frog and your check rails, make sure there's no ballast sticking in there, because the flanges will pick that and you will derail. So just make sure those are all clear. I use a little scalpel blade, sometimes you use a dentist pick. You can see I've got a couple bits of ballast in there at the moment. Once those are all cleaned out and the turnouts switch across perfectly, I usually give my track a little bit of a clean and a run around just to make sure that everything is all good. Just another point, when you are ballasting your yard, you do have obviously feeder wires that come in. You obviously drill through the baseboard to drop those feeder wires in. I've got a feeder wire right here that drops in. You want to plug those holes. I just use little bits of tissue paper just to plug those holes so the ballast doesn't fall through and the glute doesn't leach through. So you're not ending up with little holes over your layout where your ballast sort of disappears. And any sort of holes, just remember that isopropyl alcohol breaks the surface tension. That stuff will run a mile. So sort of before you go ahead and ballast, make sure you fill up all your little holes where your feeder wires come in, where your turnouts are. If you're using turnout motors or push-pull rods, just make sure that you do plug those holes and make sure you unplug them afterwards. Otherwise your turnouts won't switch. So that's basically it for my ballasting video. It's not exactly new news for anyone. It's just how I do it. And this steel mill yard here is pretty much done. I'm going to wait for that to dry up. Once that's all dried up, I'll get the airbrush out onto it and I'll do some more weathering on the rails, and also do electrical tests as well. I'll do a car test, make sure there's no ballast in the flangeways or anything, and make sure the locomotives run nice over it. Once that's done, it's job complete, and I will carry on with the rest of the ballasting over by the rotary dumper. But I hope you picked up probably about why I use isopropyl alcohol. I hope if you didn't know that, I hope you picked that up very well. As I said, my videos are not tips or tricks. They're not how-to videos. It's just basically how I do it. But thank you very much for watching. Cheers, guys.